Exam season is almost over and it is the final stretch. You probably only have a couple of exams left, and it can feel like the worst thing ever to have to revise for those final couple of exams, and keeping motivation going can be quite a challenge. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down some of the strategies that have always helped me through GCSEs, through A levels, and now through my undergrad exams to just stay focused and stay able to hit on the revision and not, fall prey to the inclination to sit in bed and just scroll on TikTok, because that is not going to help you get good grades in these final exams. What is going to be implementing these mindsets, study, and sort of daily routine strategies that are just going to keep you on the right path for these final couple of days. I know a lot of people's GCSEs finish on Monday, a lot of A levels are going to be finishing over this week. This is what we're going to be doing. First of all, I'm going to be thinking about study strategies that are going to keep you productive. The first thing is you've got to understand that you're not going to be as productive right now as you were at the start of exam season, simply because you've been going for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it is draining. No one can give 100% for weeks and weeks. It just doesn't work like that. So what you need to be making sure that you're doing is prioritizing those high yield topics, prioritizing those things that underpin a lot of the other ideas for things like chemistry, physics, maths. It's thinking about those topics that underpin different topics. So in maths, it's knowing algebra very, very well, being able to rearrange equations, being able to manipulate formulae. For something like physics, it might be having an understanding of how a circuit works, having an understanding of forces and which ones act in certain situations. Just having that sort of baseline, and then targeting and making sure that you're looking at those topics that are likely to come up, having a look at what have been tested over the past couple of years, what examiners' reports are saying is likely to come up, and really hitting home with those specific areas. That's not to say you should neglect the rest of it, but if you're going to be spending your time on something, you want to be making sure it is the most productive things. If you're struggling to think about what the most impactful things to be focusing on are for a certain topic, then do drop down what paper, what subject you're doing, what exam board in the comments, and I'll do my best to sort of give you some advice as to what you should be focusing in on. Because it's getting towards the end of exam season, you are tired, you're not going to be able to focus for as long as you could originally. It makes it even more important that you're using active recall and spaced repetition all the time. That should be your primary method of revision, alongside, of course, doing practice questions and past papers. A lot of people don't really think of them as falling under active recall, but they are, because you're not using your notes, you're not looking at a textbook or any reference material, you're actively recalling the information out of your brain, which is the very definition of active recall. So those should be the things that you're focusing on, and you don't want to be rereading, you absolutely don't want to be making any notes at this point, or reading notes or highlighting the notes, unless that is an area that you've realised, okay, I actually don't know the content for this area. So it's not that I need to be learning how to apply the content in an exam style situation. I actually need to go back and learn the content. That is the only way in which you should be actually thinking about reading a textbook or watching videos for the sake of it. The rest of the time, you should just be prioritising questions and making sure you get that done. And if you have extra time and you feel like, okay, I probably could focus for a little bit longer today, that's when you might want to go to some free science lessons videos, or to find some animations of processes that help you in chemistry, that help you in biology, something like that. Obviously, when you're doing past paper questions and past papers, they should be under timed conditions. This is especially true if you have a question pack. So let's say you're going to be studying for physics and you want to be looking at nuclear physics specifically, and you have a question pack that's all about nuclear decay. When you are doing each of the questions, look at how many marks it is and give yourself that many minutes. Because if it's a 3-mark question and you're spending 10 minutes doing it in practice, you're going to find that you're running out of time in the exam itself. So a lot of people will fall into that trap, and I think now it is really crucial as you get to these final exams, just to make sure that every time you are testing yourself, doing proper questions, you are doing it under exam style conditions to make the most of the time that you are spending revising. But when you're not doing questions or past papers and you're just sort of learning, going through flashcards, for example, do really quite short focused sessions. So these are what are called Pomodoro sprints, and that's where you're not doing like lengthy Pomodoro sessions, which are normally going to be 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. You're instead doing something more like 20 minutes on and 5 minutes off. So you're sort of allowing yourself to focus for a really intense burst, and then giving yourself a break, and then focusing again, and repeating that 2 or 3 times before having a longer, perhaps 15-minute break. So that's the studying side of things, and you probably know that those are things that you should be doing, but sometimes it's hard to actually put that into practice. So the first thing that I want you to do in terms of thinking about your own mindset and the way you're approaching these final few exams, to stop yourself getting bored with the whole exam system, because that's normally what it is. It's just been going for so long that it's draining and you're bored of it and you just want summer to begin. Now, I want you to visualize that outcome if you stop studying now and compare it with the outcome of you spending 2, 3, 4 days extra focused studying. You're going to feel so much better coming out of your final exam if you knew that you put all of the effort that you possibly could into achieving a good grade in that exam. Putting the effort in now could be the difference between you getting a 7 or an 8, could be the difference between you getting a B or an A star. That is how significant these final exams are, because there's a tendency for us to weight these exams less. We have this sort of time inconsistency where we almost perceive the first couple of exams as being worth a greater proportion of the grade than the final exam. Even if you don't think like that, you almost subconsciously have that as an idea that, oh, it's the last exam, there's nothing I can do to change my grade now. There is, particularly if you're close to a boundary. If you do very well in this exam, that can push you above said boundary. So you still want to realise that these are worth just as much as those exams at the start that you prepared ages for. So make sure you're putting the same amount of effort into these, because you're going to feel so much better on results day, opening up your results and seeing what you wanted, rather than having that moment seeing what you didn't really want and thinking, oh, I could have spent those last couple of days doing that little bit extra. And I'm warning you now to make sure that you are going to be doing that little bit extra, so you are really pleased with yourself on results day, knowing that you put all the effort possible into getting the grades that you want in these exams. So now you've got that sort of wider motivation. How you're going to translate that into the everyday is using micro motivations. So something as simple as doing your past paper, marking it, having a look at the examiner's report, and then rewarding yourself with an episode of your favourite TV show. It always just so happens that all the good TV shows come out during exam season, and that can feel absolutely miserable. So if you can't wait to start it, don't wait, but use it as a reward after you've had a good study session. And it's things like that, even, writing an essay plan and you get like a handful of Maltesers. It's the most ridiculous example, but having something that really gives you that dopamine as a reward for doing whatever task you have to do related to studying is basically Pavlov dogging yourself into wanting to do the study things, because you know you're going to get that dopamine hit afterwards. I do hope that that helps at least a little bit in raising your motivation and focusing in on the proper study techniques that you should be looking at over the course of the next couple of days as you move towards your final exams. Good luck in however many exams you have left to go. It's probably just 1 or 2. I hope they go amazingly, and do let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you want any advice before your final couple of exams, because now that I'm done with my exams, I've got all the time in the world to respond to your comments. See you in the next video.